Tennessee is known for having some of the lowest property taxes in the nation. With every state calculating property taxes a little bit differently though, you may be wondering, how do we calculate our property taxes in Tennessee, and will those fit within your budget? What's up, y'all? I'm Rachel Hadidsazrealtor. I'm a realtor with eXp in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Full disclosure, I'm not a tax expert, so if you have questions that reach beyond the scope of my expertise, I would recommend contacting the local tax assessor for the county or the jurisdiction that you will be moving to. According to Wallethub, the average American spends nearly $2,500 annually on property taxes, and that doesn't even count the states that have vehicle property taxes. Tennessee does not have a vehicle property tax, by the way. If we did, we would make a killing on those folks that turn their home into a junkyard. I would love to know down in the comments where you're tuning in from, what your property taxes are, and does your location have one of those vehicle property taxes that I mentioned? And make sure you stay until the end of this video, because I'm going to tell you the easiest way to find out what your property taxes will be for any given property. Overall, Tennessee ranks as the 15th lowest in terms of property taxes, with the average property taxes paid in Tennessee being around $1,200 annually. Certainly, this is just a general average of the state, so depending on where you live, certain counties and cities will have higher property taxes than others. Decatur County has the lowest property taxes in Tennessee, while it comes as no surprise that Williamson County in the Nashville area has the highest property taxes in the state. Williamson County is a highly desirable place to live, and there's no doubt that they provide additional services for those property taxes because of that area. There are so many factors to think about when you're determining where you want to move, and property taxes is just one of them. But it's also important to consider, what are the services that you're going to get in return for those property taxes? Are you the type of person that would prefer a higher level of service in exchange for those higher property taxes? Some may not need a higher level of service, and for them, they are going to be just fine in a county with a lower level of service and lower property taxes. Communities that you might want to avoid, however, would be those with higher property taxes and a lower level of service. So we know that every county, every city is going to be a little bit different in the tax rate that they have, as well as the level of service that they provide. For information on the services that they do provide within that jurisdiction, you will have to contact each jurisdiction separately. I wish there was like a database where you could just see everything in a nice, clean-cut little table. Wouldn't that make your move so much easier? I will, however, link a website that I found that does list every county in Tennessee's property tax rate. So how do we calculate property taxes in Tennessee? Well, there are 4 components that you'll need to have in order to calculate your property taxes: the property's classification, the appraised value, the assessed value, and then the tax rate. The classification is determined by the use of the property. Is it residential, farm, commercial, industrial, etc.? The appraised value of each taxable property is an estimate of the market value based on a set of tables, manuals, and procedures mandated by the state to provide equal treatment to all properties. The assessed value is calculated by multiplying the appraised value by the assessment ratio. Remember those property classification types: residential, farm, industrial, commercial, etc.? Each one of those classification types has its own assessment ratio. For purposes of this video, most people really need to concern themselves with what is the residential assessment ratio. The assessment ratio that we'll be covering in this video is the one that's used for farm or residential properties. That assessment ratio is 25%. Do keep in mind though that if you're looking at commercial, industrial, personal property, anything like that, there will be different assessment ratios for those classifications of property. Lastly, you have your tax rate. The tax rate is set for each county and municipality. That's set by the local governing body and the mayor based on the amount budgeted to fund services. As I mentioned earlier, these tax rates really vary based on the level of services provided and the total value of the county's tax base. Okay, so you have your appraised value, from which you calculated the assessed value by multiplying it by the assessment ratio. From there, you take that number and multiply it times the tax rate in order to see that property's annual property taxes. Let's do an example, and full disclosure, I am not a mathematician. For this example, I looked at my childhood home growing up in Cookeville, Tennessee. It was last appraised in 2019 at $134,100. And please don't confuse this number with the market value. That is what this house would go for on the open market. All right, so let's do this. You're gonna multiply $134,100 by that assessment ratio, 25%. Remember to carry the decimal points. So you're gonna multiply it times 0.25 to determine the assessed value, which is $33,525. To find the city taxes, you'll multiply that by Cookeville's city tax rate of 0.99. Again, remember to carry the decimal place. To find the county taxes, you'll multiply Putnam County's tax rate of 2.926 by the assessed value. This gives you city taxes of $331.90 for the property, and $980.94 goes to the county for taxes, for a total annual tax payment of $1,312.84 that my dad paid out in taxes last year. All right, so I've gone into detail on how Tennessee's property taxes are calculated, and I've spilled the tea on how much my dad paid in property taxes last year. Thanks, Dad. I'm gonna be honest with you and say, I don't really ever do this at all. The reason being is that all you have to do to find a particular property's taxes is to look in the public tax record. This is something that I have access to online as a realtor as I pay my MLS dues, but it's something that you could possibly find online yourself if you Google it, or you can just go to the jurisdiction's courthouse and request this information as it is public information. All right, so I told you I was gonna tell you the easiest way to find out the property taxes for any given property, and I just said it. All you have to do is look at the listing. Whenever a property is listed, the last year's taxes that were paid out will be pulled from the public tax record and placed on that listing so you can see an estimate of the property's taxes. Do note that if the property is in both a city and a county jurisdiction, that they will be subjected to both of those tax rates. And the only way that you can find out what the tax rate is either to look it up online or to call that jurisdiction yourself. Down below in the description, I did find a link to a website that has an easy way to calculate your county taxes for any county within the state of Tennessee. Look for that down below. However, do note that it doesn't include those city taxes. So remember, if that property is in both a city and county jurisdiction, it will be subjected to both tax rates. So you might just have to do a little leg up work yourself and find that information on Google. That will be your best friend here. I hope this information was helpful. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for me if it was. Also, subscribe with the bell so that you'll be the first to know when I post a new video. I have so much more to tell you about life and real estate in the Murfreesboro area and beyond, so I'll see you at the next video.